And welcome to PCP, the Pagan Centered Podcast. I'm Dave the Unicorn.
Member of the Red Coyote.
I'm Ashley.
I'm here.
Also joining us tonight are...
I'm Amanda.
I'm Barrett.
I'm Nick.
I'm Naria.
Alright, so tonight we have a suggestion from Peter Diving to talk about building community from the absolute basics, something we've never done on PCP before, or on the Pagan Centered Podcast. So we'll get back to that right after these messages, during which Scary will piss blood. You're listening to the Pagan Centered Podcast, bringing unique and intelligent perspective to the masses using contemporary technology, allowing for free discussion of one's personal beliefs and enlightenment of those not familiar with a particular religion. We bring to the forefront many issues that are ignored or shunned upon by mainstream religion. We discuss topics on a religious and non-religious level as they relate to our panel representing varied belief systems. Our brute honesty and candid opinion has made us one of the longest-running and most popular pagan podcasts. Feel welcome to call in live or submit listener feedback via our website, pagancenteredpodcast.com. And we're back.
You don't have to mention that.
You can edit it out. Okay, well that takes care of that problem. Alright, so building community from scratch. So there's a lot of reasons to build community. Right now there's, wow, these show notes have been edited. Okay. So basically right now what happens with pagans is that we have to go, hi, nice symbol there. Bow chicka bow wow. No, not bow chicka bow wow. No! Just trying to say hi. So if you build the community, they will come. And then you won't have to look like an idiot in the supermarket.
I find it amusing that this group of antisocial personalities is talking about building community, but apparently we've already done that somewhat. So,
since we're so good at it, we've been solicited by a pagan elder to talk about this topic.
Hey, we can build them. That just doesn't mean we like to stay in them.
We don't like them. We're just good at it.
alrighty.
Community is like hippies with food. People don't want to go too far to get it. I kind of like that.
I do too.
Yeah, I like that.
You got your preservatives, the whole constantly reviewing the one-on-one crap at your main religious meetings. And those preservatives are frowned upon, but they are very practical for perpetuating the group and getting more people to come.
And that also goes with the don't go too far. It's part of the reason all the pagan pride days all over the place, why we don't just have one or two, because really, there's a lot of people that if it takes more than an hour to travel, that's way too long.
Yeah.
They don't want to go anywhere. So if it can be within half an hour drive or somewhere that they can walk to, or basically within the township, it makes it a lot easier for everybody to get together.
Well, on the flip side, for the Pagan Pride Days, you will have some people that travel stupid distances just because it is not close to home, but...
Or because the one that's close to home is full of fail.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, but there was one close to home that they are trying to avoid.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, if you're in an area and there's no Pagan Pride Day, that's a good sign there's no community there, and you might want to build one. And that's kind of where we're at with this episode, is there is no Pagan Pride Day. There is no community. There's not even a bad community. You're just starting from absolute scratch. Yeah. So
here's a networking tactic I used to use in the barracks once upon a time. If you have an interest, find a book based on your interest and read it in a publicly viewable location. And maybe somebody will start a conversation.
Maybe. You never know.
Do 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 do.
Well, there are
See how that works?
The only problem with that, Scurv, that I can see is when it comes to your interest being paganism, you're probably more likely to get some Bible thumper than another pagan to come up to you.
Pagans are really judgmental people. We like to pretend we're not, but we really are.
Yeah.
You know, a pagan would be worried more about either A, some other pagan thinking that they're not pagan enough, or B, some other pagan will walk by and it's like, oh, he's reading some fluffy crap, regardless of whatever the heck you're reading.
Yeah. There is no happy equilibrium in the pagan community. We'd like to say that there is, and we'd like to say that we can all get along once we're all in the same area. But once we leave that same area, we've also shown that we're just putting on the nice face because we deeply hate each other.
Dun, dun,
It-
dun, dun, dun.
What about doing something that could be relatively innocuous, like doing a herbal medicine session, or doing a edible plants in the area. This way, it's not something that's
Overtly pagan?
right, but you'll attract people that are more than likely at least pagan friendly at the very least. So it becomes more of a gentle atmosphere to be able to ask questions and kind of hint to different things. Because you can hint about, if you're talking about plants, let's just go with that example. You're talking about, oh, well, some people will say there's an energy to the plant, and then you can see if they all scoff and giggle, or if there's even one person that is nodding in agreement or giving a smile, and you know that maybe you can go up to that person later and talk to them.
And then you'll find out they were just nodding and smiling to make you feel comfortable.
Or they thought you were ridiculous. You know?
I still think we need code words.
All the code words we've come up with sucked, therefore it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The tuna at sunrise.
Fishy, fishy?
The response, fishy means you're pagan.
Fishy, fishy indeed.
There's an annoyed griffin somewhere.
There's many annoyed griffins in a lot of places.
Yep.
Because they're cute and fluffy and can't handle it.
But if you're starting a group, a good first step is get the word out very slowly that you are starting a group. Spread the word in reality, as in physical space. Don't rely on Rich Rocks. Everybody says go to Rich Rocks. You might get 3 or 4 people at best. Same with Meetup.com. You'll usually get like 20 reservations and 5 people show up.
If you're lucky.
Yeah. Go to post bulletin boards. If you're on a college campus, post on the bulletin boards there. Go to bookstores. They have bulletin boards. Post there. Grocery stores. They have bulletin boards. Post there. You know, if these get torn down, it's a sign that you need to do more PR. And we'll get to the whole PR stuff later. But try to not be too anti-Christian. In fact, try to be Christian friendly, especially at first. Don't go straight for the giant freaking pentagram. Tone it down a little. Have a giant tree. Have like religious meetup with a giant tree next to it. In big letters and in smaller letters, pagan stuff. Or you just do like
Like
me and
it.
Ashley and do a giant pastel pentagram in the middle of campus.
Right? Oh my god, that was great. Onk if you love ISIS.
I think what's just as important as getting the word out is getting out and talking to the people in the community.
Yes.
If you don't know anybody in your community, they're not going to have any incentive to want to help you out,
Yeah.
or
and-
they're going to think it's a trap.
Yeah, and you really do need to reach out to the people that are there. There are people already there. Don't try to convince yourself otherwise. They are there. Seek them out. Seek out these elders. Seek out these people that have been there. They might be able to fill you in on some history. What to expect. What not to expect. Has this been attempted before? Has this failed before? And why?
Unless you live in a town with Silver Raven Wolf, in which case I advise against it.
Yeah, a person who lives in the same town as Silver Raven Wolf.
And you see what I'm not doing.
But the thing is, as far as the local community elders go, get their verbal support. Get them to say, yes, this is a good idea. Do what you need to do to convince them of this. This isn't just a matter of projecting until they freaking agree with you. This is more a matter of figure out your plan and adjust your plan until they're happy with it. Not that you gotta bend over backwards and ask for their ass kissing. But if you don't have the blessing of the elders, you might be doing something wrong.
All right then.
That was different.
The elders speak in space language.
I saw on Skype gut wrench, and then I heard noises. Did we bring him in this chat?
But the thing you remember about elders is that even if you don't like them, they tend to be more experienced. Probably more experienced than you.
They don't call them elders just because it sounds cool.
Or because they're old.
Well, yeah, that's
But sometimes they do.
But
Just saying.
see, this has like a secondary purpose though. If you get these people to sign on and be like, this is a great idea, they'll spread the word to people that are already known to be pagan.
Mm-hmm.
And thus you have created a good social network on which to build your organization. So once you get things going, and once you get the climate right, again, you gotta not be too terribly worried about, oh my god, they're gonna kill us on the first meeting. So once you figure out that that's pretty much the climate you're in, set a deadline. If you're in the, oh my god, they're gonna kill us mode, do some press-related stuff. Public relations. It is your friend. But do it right and know how to do it right. Otherwise, you'll be full of fail. Don't be full of fail. We'll all make fun of you for it, Spirit of Fire.
I keep getting flashbacks to Bob. Do you remember Bob from the Pagan group?
Bob was awesome.
Yeah, I've been thinking about him too lately.
And I just remember his rant on Christianity and the whole 3 days thing, and me just trying to, like, vanish. It's like, awkward. And you kicked him out of the group for a while.
All he would do is show up and start yelling at people. I'm like, well, this is quite productive. I couldn't take the Bible thumpers and him going at it. I'm like, you all of you need to shut the fuck up.
Oh man, so many flashbacks from Pagan group are coming back to me now. Like the time that Amber was on the panel group. Because What's-Her-Nuts decided she wasn't going to show up. You
That was
know,
fun.
be a balls out Pagan leader.
Yeah, they pulled a Star Foster.
Ooh. Delightful.
Oh.
Yeah,
You mean
there.
stirring up drama,
Almost.
and then when called on, you kind of disappear. Yes, that. It's Pagan Bash time.
Ouch, Dave. Ouch. Very nicely. Very nice of them.
So speaking of Star Foster, the press. What press stuff should you be doing? Stuff that reaches the general community, the general population. If they all read a newspaper, or if there's only one local newspaper, get published in that newspaper. Not a, oh my god, front page article, oh my god, there's pagans and they're going to be doing a ritual nearby, on the front page. You know, like some people did. Phase yourself into the community's consciousness slowly. Slowly. Motherfuckers, slowly. Months. This is not going to get done in a single article. You might probably going to take a year or more. You gotta plan this. Well, no, we never planned it out. You just gotta do it slowly.
It's kind of like dealing with children that don't want to eat the vegetables. You are not going to get them to like vegetables by putting a giant funnel down their throat and force-feeding them. You have to take it a little bit slowly.
Slowly. Yeah, so you're not going to do this in a single article. In fact, it's probably a good idea to get in touch with your local press people. I thought I had a whole section on this. Hang on. Let me switch to show notes here. Yeah. Well. Okay, yeah.
You need to give yourself a face that people understand, recognize, and connect with, and not be some faceless invading organization
Basically,
that really makes people uncomfortable.
A lot of your initial stuff is not even going to be about that there is an organization. A lot of your initial stuff is going to happen before you even start an organization or publicly make it known that you are starting an organization. You're just going to do a lot of seeding of information. You know, so you get Halloween coming up. Do the obligatory Samhain article. Yes, we all make fun of it, but it's not a bad idea. Also,
It keeps people informed, so
Yeah.
they don't freak out when they see that word.
every time there's a Samhain coming up, if you're a Wiccan group, talk about it in the newspaper. Send them a letter. Make it even a letter to the editor if you have to. Make sure you sign it. Give them your address. Make means of contacting you. Make it pretty much anti-anonymous. You know, you want these people to know you are willing and able to be contacted and you are a real person. Do not use pseudonyms. Do not use fake names. And for God's fucking sakes, don't use magical names. You're dealing with the press. They frowned on people trying to hide shit. If you come off as trying to hide shit, they're going to feel like, oh, I need to do an expose. Yeah, that's a great starting point. So be available to the press. I remember in Clarion, the press would always come to me. I never really had to go to them after a while. Like, hey, we're thinking of doing this cool story. You want in? Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's basically how my relations with the press was. But, no, go ahead.
And try not to foam at the mouth when you're talking to the press. We can all understand that there's animosity backed up on a lot of different levels. But if the first words coming out of your mouth is, it's not like we worship the devil, and trying to negate all the possible things that you think people might say, you're going backwards. Just talk about what you're doing.
Yeah,
Say why you like what you're doing.
Yeah, and think about other groups when they're interviewed. So when you see protesters getting interviewed, their first reaction isn't, "Oh, we're not terrorists." You know,
Right?
Don't talk about what you're not. Talk about what you are. But be careful with your wording. Don't be going off like some naive person. Oh yeah, we worship the horn god, and he is a horny little guy. People that are not familiar with paganism and come from a belief system where they're frowning upon these things, even if they're journalists and upholding journalistic integrity, are not going to be inclined to reflect you in the best light if you say stuff like that.
Something to remember about journalists and doctors and lawyers and cops and all these people, journalists especially, since we're talking about them, they eat too.
Journalists are people too.
And since they eat too, and they like to eat, most of them, I guess, well, Dave, the phrase, we worship the horn god, could you make that sensational?
Easily. That's why I mentioned it.
Let's make this sensational, okay? I'm going to say the phrase, I worship the horned god, you wish, but, and how would you make that sensational?
I would have, if I was even upholding journalistic integrity, I would have a picture of the devil in a newspaper with the phrase, I worship the horn god in big bold letters underneath it in quotes.
Oh yeah, but let's assume it's just a fluffy bunny you're dealing with and you felt no threat. How much fun could you have?
Lots.
Alrighty.
I mean, the idea is to try to be professional. If you're starting a group from scratch, there's no pagans out there, you're not knowing what exactly you're dealing with, the best way to go is to be as professional as you can. Now, that doesn't mean you have to wear a suit and you have to be politically correct or anything like that, but it means present yourself as honestly as you wish to be perceived. If you don't want to be perceived as a raging, emotional, crazy person, you have to present yourself that way, which means watching your words, watching your language.
So basically the advice is, if you see Star Foster doing it, don't do it.
Also, something else, that means maybe you shouldn't be walking around Walmart in a traditional ritual robe and then complain about why you don't understand why people look at you funny. Not sending the best image.
Oh man,
You
I'm
look
so
like
glad
a
we have good relations with the press. Especially with that great, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god, the look on his face. I wish my brain came with a camera.
I didn't see the look on his face. I just saw him running through the house as I was in the kitchen.
It was almost like a surprise butt rape face.
It was close to being a surprise butt rape.
You know what? It was a surprise butt rape. Might have been more pleasant if it was that, but oh no.
That poor Athame. But anyway.
One thing that has changed in the 6 or 8 years since I've started a pagan group from scratch, don't forget the pagan press. Granted, the pagan press is stretched pretty far and pretty thin, but it's kind of there. And you might have a PNC bureau that's covering your entire state and or nation and or continent. So, grab their attention and have them do a news story on you. They might get some local pagans to you by accident.
Or heck, volunteer to help them.
Oh, yeah, that too.
Yeah. Especially if there's a PNC that covers your area, there's a good chance that there's something close that maybe pagans in your area are already going to, even though it's a little bit of distance away. It's worth checking out.
Well, here's my take on starting a group. I prefer functionality over size.
That's
Mhm.
Bow Wow.
Love you too, but now seriously, play off your strengths. If you have strong people skills, hypothetically, and you're good with people you meet and all that stuff, fine. Set yourself up in situations to meet people and all that. And there's nothing wrong with handpicking a small group. Or at least to start out with. I mean, that's... Alright, it's too quiet. Someone else
So
speak.
yeah, prime the press, basically. Get them carrying stories about pagans. Get people understanding what paganism is about. Don't do it under the premise of, hey, look at me. Hey, look at me. I'm doing something cool over here. No, just kind of do it just for the sake of seeding information. This is an information campaign. You want people to be informed, so when you start your organization, people won't immediately freak out. Or those that freak out will be neutralized by those that have read your articles.
Hopefully. Oh, and here's a stupid idea. If you're sending articles or you're sending stuff into a paper, read the paper for a while before you send it there.
Yes.
Know your terrain.
Know the kind of crap they like to publish. Emphasis on crap.
I mean, it's... And maybe if look some of the writers up on Facebook. You know, I mean, yes, I know I'm advocating stalking right now, but I mean, do your research. These are people that work in the public and all that stuff. If they got a Facebook, research it a little bit. Learn your terrain before you interact with it. I mean, if you do a little bit of research and you find out this newspaper, this small town newspaper borders on yellow journalism, well, use that to base the outcome of your probable actions and then decide accordingly. If you look up and, hey, they're pretty cool and they're pretty awesome and they just want to fill pages, hey, use that too. Okay.
I think another thing to include is keeping the integrity of the self. Being professional, you may feel like you're pretending to be somebody else. If that's the case, maybe you need to take a step back. But decide that if you happen to not get anybody, decide how you're going to handle that. Are you going to schedule another meeting? What are you going to do? You can't please everybody. And accept that and be okay with it from the very beginning. You have to, if you're going to run a group, you have to be able to maintain who you are and the comfortability of who you are while being able to be in a professional setting and handle confrontation when somebody goes, well, I don't like the way this is run, or why did you do it this day, or why did you do it that way? So it's just an important thing to keep in mind before you start.
But yeah, at some point you really do need to plan a first meeting. Have a first gathering. This will be a very big gathering probably. Expect outsiders to show up. So, basically expect everybody to show up. Or nobody to show up. That's something you gotta plan for as well. So, I remember the Pagan study group, the first time we had like our first official meeting. We were planning for 3 people to show up, and 30 people showed up. After a few logistical slight modifications after that, we managed to get off to a good start. So, there's quite a few things you need to do at a first meeting. Of course, you need to plan the second meeting, but probably not make that the first item on your agenda. But at some point, you do need to plan a second meeting during this first meeting. But you need to just worry about the second meeting. You don't have to worry about setting up meetings on a regular schedule. You know, and also, pro tip, everybody's showing up to the first meeting and then probably not showing up ever again. So the second meeting will have people that are truly dedicated to the group. So if you're going to take any kind of votes or anything, do it at the second meeting. This way you don't have people that aren't part of your group skewing all the vote results.
Mm-hmm.
Good way to introduce and start off your first meeting, though, is to introduce the purpose of the organization. Why does this organization exist? You got to answer that question of why, and then answer the who, what, where, how, you know? But the why is very important. And part of that purpose and goals and all that stuff that you should be talking about in the first meeting is, the establishment of some non-tangible goals for the organization. Things like promoting the acceptance of pagan worship within this such and such town, or you need to set up non-tangible goals like that, just to the feel-good goals, I guess you would call them. And then you have to set up some tangible goals to, like, to set up a booth at the big town fair, or whatever will make a local impact. And so you have these intangible goals, which are kind of feel-good type of things, and you got these tangible goals, which is a physical presence somewhere. And you don't need to set deadlines for these goals. You just got to establish these as where the organization will be going. I mean, you can worry about the details as to when this is happening and how this is all happening at future meetings. But the first meeting is very much a meet and greet, say hello to everybody, try to get everybody who's uncomfortable with each other, which is basically everybody, a little more comfy with each other. Say hi, introduce yourselves, do some ice breaking. Ice breaking exercises, icebreakers always suck. Anything, just don't ever buy a book on icebreakers. Please don't. They are all lame.
They really are. I agree with Dave. Don't get a book on icebreakers.
The best way to get everybody comfy with themselves is ask them, who are you, and why the fuck are you here? Probably in much more polite words. But basically, that's it.
I don't know. Some people might be able to get away with using those exact words.
But through that process, everybody will get to know, hey, I practice that too, or hey, I'm also a Christian worried about these crazy little pagans, and okay, I'm not alone. That kind of deal. And
Right.
also, I mean, that process it's so open-ended, it's just naturally conducive to honesty.
Well, borrowing something that Barrett said a few episodes ago, I don't know, or to people in listener land, possibly a couple episodes from now. If you're doing setting up tangible things to accomplish, things like blood drive and food drive and stuff like that. I mean, if it's something productive for the community as a whole, maybe. Especially since you're setting up that intangible goal of making pagans more likable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I'm rambling stupid.
And
Go ahead.
we're kind of going over it in the chat room. The thing with icebreakers is that everybody feels uncomfortable talking to people they don't know. And no, nobody really likes going, this is my name and this is what I'm here for. Because people don't like to feel vulnerable. It exposes things that people can use as an attack or people can make fun of. At the same time, if you're asking questions like that, it puts everybody out in the open. And it makes it really easy to go, oh, hey, I know that area, or, hey, I had a family member with that name, or just stupid little talk that breaks everything down and gets people going. And that's the most important thing, is just getting them going.
Yep.
You can't do that by looking in a coffee cup.
Or asking people what their favorite color is.
Yes.
I mean, there is, nobody wants to feel vulnerable, but everybody is mutually vulnerable at this first meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And the only person with any kind of authority that is, more de facto, it is kind of de facto, but it's more just implied than anything else, rather than given, is the person who organized it. So I guess, they should probably be the first one to do that. Hey, I am here because, and this is why I think it's cool that we all get together. But you got to hand off, And you don't need to worry about going in any kind of order, but going in a linear order kind of helps, because then make sure you hit everyone. And don't forget anybody, or leave anybody else, or leave any of the introverts out or anything like that.
Yeah.
But there's some interesting questions you got to come up with, because this isn't just, hey, we're here to have, paintball club. It's a religious club. Yeah, it's a religious group. Are you going to have opening prayer? This is a religious group. Some people like prayer in their religious groups. Problem is, this is also a group that's going to preferably be open to the public. And so you might make everybody who's not pagan feel left out. But even more worse than that, you got that vulnerability thing going on. And pagans are paranoid of being judged to begin with. And prayers tend to be very specific to a specific religion. And so you might wind up making the pagans more uncomfortable than the non-pagans with doing a prayer. Not exactly a great way to start off. But that's definitely a question you need to address. However you want to address it, one way or the other. Now, some people don't do opening prayer or closing prayer, but instead opt for bigger things like religious observances. Again, the first meeting or the second meeting is really not the place for this. What you need to do is just set up a separate way for people to do their religious observances. This way, if it's a mixed pagan group, okay, we're all doing a Wiccan Sabbath. Okay, well, just the Wiccans can show up, and anybody else who's interested in observing. Or, the Ossetry want to do a bloat. Well, the Ossetry can go off and do that, and anybody they feel welcome can show up. Those kind of things. This way, yes, everybody can kind of hive off into their own, subgroups, but you're not leaving anybody out of the overall group. I mean, the main thing is try not to abandon anyone from the main group. And one thing that gets to me a lot about a lot of pagan groups, if you're claiming to be a religious group, be religious. If you're claiming to be a Wiccan group, be in adherence to all the dogma of Wicca. If you're going to be following XYZ religion, be moral in accordance to whatever XYZ religion says is moral. Nothing is more frustrating than showing up to a group to watch a lot of people not embrace the religion they claim to practice.
That also goes with if you want to learn more about a specific religion. So say we'll use Wiccan as an example. If you want to learn more about Wicca, don't label it a Wiccan group. Because then other people thinking they're learning more about it will come to you while you're asking questions, hoping that people that are showing up are going to know what they're talking about. Label it a learning group. That's okay.
Yeah, that's the problem with organizing things. People assume you actually know something, and most often than not, it's usually the person with the initiative to put everything together. It's not the elder. The elder's too busy being pissed off at everyone after all their experience of being screwed.
Mm-hmm.
What about a social group, though?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that we did in Pagan Group is we actually had a separate gathering every week for just fellowship. And it was just, people just hanging out. Not a religious thing, just people of similar beliefs, playing video games, going to Walmart, whatever. Just normal, mundane stuff. I mean, granted, Pagan Group in Clarion got big, and we started having a lot of these subgroups to try to make sure everybody was getting some individual attention when Pagan Group was getting to be 50 people every week.
Oh, yeah, like advanced pagan study at Amber's house.
We have main pagan study, advanced pagan study, pagan fellowship night. Geez, we had something going every single day of the week at one point. It was we were quite the active organization. There was a group investigating God on Mondays, which was our interfaith group.
Oh, which started the whole PCP phenomena.
And then Gig led to New Gig, which led to Gig Cast, which led to PCP.
Mm-hmm. I remember that argument we had in Chandler.
You
Where
honestly thought I was going to smash someone over the head with a chair.
Getting ready. I started screaming about how can you think that your life is more important than that of a spider in the middle of the dining hall. And the Christian shrank 3 sizes, like, oh my God, I feel like I'm having NAM flashbacks.
Why, yes, she is text from Red versus Blue. But one thing you do need to establish right off the bat, and you really, really need to do this right away, and the first meeting's maybe not the best place to do it, but the second meeting is, because now you're going to have less of an outside influence and more of just a bunch of pagans showing up. And And with the second meeting, you need to establish, is this a pan-pagan group that's going to encompass all pagans, or are you following a particular tradition? Again, if this is Wicca, you need to establish this is a Wiccan group and not a pagan group. If you're a trad-specific group, like you are practicing in such and such a tradition of Wicca, then consult the dogma for that particular tradition for, guidance on how to structure your stuff. If you are a Wiccan group, you can refer to just the Ordained for assistance on how to structure your organization. If this is an organization for all pagans or everyone, you might not want to have your organizational structure resemble that which is recommended by a specific tradition. So, we often see a lot of pagan groups have the dual one male and one female leader, which is okay, but that's a Wiccan thing. What the hell is a Wiccan thing doing in an organization that serves recons? So, again, the organization of it's a structural organization of your organization. Can reflect a little bit on what you're all doing. Now, as far as the leadership model, this is where things start to get messy. So there's a lot of different models you can use for leading an organization or having someone keep this place running, essentially. So the first one is the ever so popular and current fad, the consensus model. So, for example, there's the Pagan Newswire Collective runs on the basis of the consensus model. The consensus model means everybody in the organization has to agree to something for the organization to do something. If one person objects, you're all screwed. You gotta convince that last person to agree. Or you all gotta come up with a new idea. Fortunately, you can probably see the flaw with this right off the bat.
It sounds really productive. Let's implement this.
Or 4chan can show up and just troll the crap out of you. Oh yeah, cure for cancer? Yeah, I'm gonna block consensus on that. It's not practical. The only reason it works in the PNC is because nobody adheres to it. That's really the secret. It works on a very small scale of, like, I don't know, an organization with 3 or 5 people in it, but it just doesn't scale at all. I mean, when you get organizations with 10 and 15 people in it, even that small, it's a nightmare. You just can't do it. The most you could do is like, 80% of the people that actually give a crap and contribute to the organization, yeah, they said so. And nobody that actually is a regular contributor said anything against it. Now, if somebody who's a regular contributor says something against it, okay, maybe we'll rethink it. But realistically, consensus model is not very practical. But I bring it up because it's the current fad in the pagan community. Probably because nobody really understands the consensus model.
Probably.
The second model is a strong leader. So you have one person running the whole place. This is actually fairly common. This is actually fairly common with a lot of the more capable pagan organizations out there. That should say something. The organizations you see doing stuff tend to have strong leaders. It's a good thing because the person who's leading the place can go out and get stuff done. It could be a bad thing because then everybody's worried about paragrabbing. Drama. So it's not bad if they're a benevolent dictator. If they take feedback and listen to feedback and are good at taking feedback, that's great. But if they don't take feedback well, or they're like, no, I know what I'm doing, shut up, you noob, for everything, yeah, not cool. Then that organization has a bad habit of dying. Kind of like Pagan Group. Once they kicked me out. Power grab.
That is so great how they could kick the founder and creator of Pagan Group out.
I'm angry. I shall vent myself on this new medium called podcasting. It shall be a podcast centered around paganism. What should
Hey,
you
Ashley,
call
you
it?
bored? See if Amber's interested.
So there's
Talking to a microphone? I don't think anybody will listen. Yeah, I can do that. Sure.
Don't worry,
Let me-
Amber, nobody's
an
listening.
hour.
Oh, okay.
We spent a whole, like, what, hour, 2 hours, not on anything productive, no, making the very first skit.
Yes. Yes, that is really how PCP started. Wow, we got this awesome intro. Man, I hope the episode we make lives up to it.
Oh, PCP trip.
Alright, so the next model that you often see is the council model. You don't see this too often anymore, but it's still out there. You get like an executive council of the organization, and they make decision by committee. All decision by committee, and this is from someone who's worked in corporate environments for a while. It just means everybody's equally unhappy. That's it. It doesn't mean everybody gets what they want. No. With decision by committee, everybody's equally unhappy. If you're more unhappy, then we need to go ahead and re-examine the decision so everybody's as unhappy as you are.
Sounds like the federal government.
It is. Paralysis by analysis. So you just over excessively analyze everything. That's a downside of this. But the good side of this is because there's so many decision makers and so much voting going on, it's kind of hard to make a stupid mistake. Not saying it's impossible. You get enough dumb people on a council, they'll screw things up. But there's enough different personalities and egos interacting here to prevent, the traditional power struggles you see in a lot of organizations. And, not saying you're not going to get clique mentality going on, but it's harder. It's just harder to do stupid things. Now, the last one is something that I see with Wiccan groups in particular, which is why I put it last, because it is kind of specific to Wiccan groups, which is the dual strong leader. So, it's a combination of the consensus, council, and strong leader models. You take these three models, you shove them together, you get the dual leadership model. So it has all of the disadvantages of the above. With one more disadvantage. When you only got two people, there's no majority. So if they can't agree, they're just going to bicker at each other endlessly. Because nobody can do a majority. Yes, it's kind of cool that, when you got two people, it is slightly harder to make dumb mistakes. It's also slightly harder to just kind of, be like the Netflix CEO and send a drunk email at 3 in the morning saying that you're going to create Quickster. So it has some advantages. It has the potential to get lots of stuff done by nature of the fact that multiple people are authorized to be strong leaders and just get stuff done. But at the end of the day, they still have to answer to each other and kind of agree on a general direction. And if these two people don't really like each other, that's going to become a problem.
I know when I was a leader in a group, the group was run by a triumvirate, and that worked really well.
Well, at least a triumvirate, you can have a majority vote.
Yeah.
But another thing you need to do at the second meeting, or maybe even the third, but sometime in the early meetings, is establish regular meetings. And you got to figure out how you're going to do this. There's different ways of doing this. If you're a religious-specific group, you've probably already got this worked out for you. You just refer to your holy text, and bam, it's probably in the manual somewhere. Even the Wiccan Dogma covers this. Wiccan Dogma is not all that much. Now, if this is a meeting for just pagans and meetings about pagans, so this is a community group essentially, you could have monthly meetings or you could have weekly meetings. Both have their, oh, okay. Let's back this train up a little bit. I skipped ahead in the show notes. You know what, fuck it, let's keep going on that derailed track. So do you want monthly or weekly? So you can choose to do weekly meetings, which is you have frequent meetings and it keeps everyone involved. And people won't be confused about when the meeting is. Every time I've been part of an organization where meetings did not happen every week, everybody always forgot when the meeting was. Just killed attendance. You want to keep attendance good, especially in the early days where people are looking for validation that this organization is actually legit and going somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But on the bright side, monthly is good if you're covering a large geographic area, and weekly is just too much of a commitment, especially with the price of gas. So what we did in the Pagan group in Clarion is a combination of the two. So we had weekly meetings as get-togethers, just covering, pagan study stuff, basic pagan study stuff. Whereas the monthly meetings were for, they were business meetings and meet and greets and getting stuff done. This is when we decided big things in life. So this way, the people that just want to show up once a month could have a say in the organization. People that were local could just show up every week, and attendance was still good either way. But another thing you gotta keep in mind too is, are these meetings going to be open to just pagans, or are they going to be open to the entire community? Are you going to be a community group or just a pagan group? I mean, both have their pluses. Being open to the community looks really fucking awesome in the press. And, being a group that's for pagans and also about pagans that anybody can attend, it kind of makes the Christians at ease. Because it's the whole argument that Christians use when experimenting with different denominations to see how crazy they really are. They just sit in the back of their churches. Well, this is giving them that possibility with a pagan group. They can just sit in the back of the pagan group and kind of be idle and quiet if they want to. And just observe, what are the crazy pagans up to? Oh, that's not too terribly crazy. Huh, didn't see a child sacrifice. Okay. That's it. Yeah, just simple things like that in life. We've had a lot of people show up to pagan group once, sometimes twice, and we never saw them ever again, and that's just how things work. One thing that you really do need to do, and not just because eventually you'll probably run into this as a legal requirement, but just organizationally and internally, set up a yearly review. Having a yearly review is awesome for, A, keeping track of stuff you've gotten done, because sometimes you do a lot of stuff and kind of don't realize it until you look back at it. So when you look back at it, you're like, hey, here's a list of all the cool stuff we've done. That then becomes your marketing paraphernalia to get more pagans in your organization. Hey, be part of an organization that's getting stuff done. Yeah, you can help get stuff done. But also it helps you realize, hey, are things speeding up, slowing down? Does stuff need to be changed? Do we need to adjust our meeting schedule? It's just good to revisit all this stuff once a year, because a lot of stuff happens in a year. One thing that I learned very late in my experience, but it is definitely a lesson to pass along, have a sign-up sheet for presenters that want to do presentations. This opens things up so that everybody feels like they can be involved and contribute to the group. It also kind of drives home the point, even though you're running the place, you're not a religious leader, You're not the elder of the community. You're just there to keep things moving along. And by soliciting presentations, you're calling on the knowledge of others to be shared. And by relying on everybody, and everybody relying on everybody else, you can have this web of knowledge that then permeates through your little community, which is awesome. So, it's good that you can do this, but the key things to keep in mind, appreciate the efforts of everybody that's doing it. Don't just doing it on an internal level. Express it verbally in front of everyone. People like that ego stroking. Give them credit. They've worked their, even if they tossed it together in 5 minutes, or they busted their ass for a week to put it together. Give them thanks. Give them credit. And give them public recognition and all the ongoing press stuff. So if you got an article about to hit about Mabon, you could be like, oh yeah, and so did a workshop a few months ago about edible plants in the area. Little name dropping, it helps. Just make sure you clear with them first, that you're going to drop their name in the press, and if they don't like it, you can use a pseudonym, but, it's cool. You really, really do need to make this feel like This is an organization that is done by the community, not by any individual, because the more you rely on the individual, the more likely the organization is to fail. And we'll get to that later. But it's also, with regards to presenters and presentations, make sure you have a date that they can present on, that you already know you're going to have a meeting for. And also have a primary and a backup presenter. Pagans are notoriously unreliable.
That's how I ended up presenting.
Exactly.
Dave, that's stereotyping.
It's not
Yes.
stereotyping. It's just a fact of life. Pagans are unreliable. Have a primary and a backup. It takes two pagans to do a job of a normal human being. If people weren't living up to these expectations, I wouldn't be saying them.
I know, I'd like to argue with you, but... Well, then again, wait, no, there's some pagans that are full... Wait, no, they get made into leaders.
Or drafted, as the case may be.
Yeah.
Pagan community, no, the community with a draft.
You know, he was probably out smoking a cigarette when that happened.
That's all right. He could draft us into this. We drafted him into being president. One thing to emphasize is, once you get things going, maintain regular contact with the press. No less than once a year. There's always new people moving into a town. There's always, especially if you're a college group, you got a freshman class every year. You're probably going to have new pagans in the neighborhood that might want to join. You might have new Christians in the neighborhood that don't really know what paganism is and just want to stop by and see what the heck you're all about and why isn't the town freaked out about you. And, you know, you might also, I'm not saying do a recruitment drive. I'm just saying maintain a steady press presence. You know, recruitment drive seems kind of desperate. You don't want to seem desperate. You just want to seem suave and confident. Think of it as picking up chicks.
With a tank.
You can't pick up chicks with a pagan group.
Picking up chicks with a tank?
You need to watch Red versus Blue.
Oh.
I like pushing buttons.
I do too.
One thing that I didn't realize when I first started the pagan group, and I didn't realize till many years later, more people will notice your group than attend its meetings. A lot of pagans have grown to hate groups, so they will watch from the fringes and hear things through the grapevine for many months before they so much as walk past your pagan group meeting. A lot of pagans, especially the ones that are experienced and probably a little more revered in their communities, they want something beyond the one-on-one crap. But most pagans are at the one-on-one level, and not a whole lot above it. So this is kind of something you got to deal with. If you want those pagans to show up, you got to give them a reason to show up. Don't just be whiny and emo like, they're not showing up. Why won't they contribute? You know, if you want to be whiny and emo, go protest Wall Street. If you want to get something done, then you better make something happen that encourages the people to actually show up. And one thing that we did in Pagan Group, they actually did get a lot of the more advanced practitioners to show up. Ironically, to regular Pagan study was advanced Pagan study. It was just the availability of the advanced information and the crazy Pagan stuff that really attracted more normal people to Pagan study. It's like, oh, okay, these people aren't just a bunch of one-on-oneers. Okay, I'll go to their one-on-one class. Wait, what? But there's a lot an organization can do that could ultimately lead to its collapse. In fact, it's a lot easier to collapse a pagan organization than keep it running. So it's a constant struggle. First, the easiest advice I can give is make sure the group doesn't suck. If your group sucks, it's just going to fall apart slowly and painfully. So simple. collapse of pagan organizations is caused by suck. The less suck you have, the less likely you are to collapse. And suck is defined by pagans wanting to avoid association with your group or desire to openly mock it. Like the pagan group in Clarion, I'm the spirit of fire. Now, suck can be caused by a lot of things. Now, I keep saying, go to the press. The press is awesome. Yeah, well, it's a double-edged sword. So, this whole suck can be caused by the press. So, whenever you have media interactions with your group, the media is coming to your pagan study to show up and do a story, first, make sure this is always planned. If you talk to the media and keep, good personal relationship with the people over there, especially the people that are just, frequently covering religious stuff, they will usually work with you and give you a heads up. Hey, in a week or so, I'm going to be doing a story on stuff. Thinking of covering your group, and then you'll know a week ahead of time. Oh, yeah. Well, next week we're having a meeting, and then, you can come by and show up, and I'll invite everybody over. We'll come talk to you, okay? We'll make your job nice and easy. And then you'll know to show up to Pagan Study. Make sure you give everybody the don't say something stupid speech. But also, I mean, when you're dealing with reporters, brief them on like if it's like a religious event, like if they're covering a ritual, kind of give them a heads up on what's going on. And in fact, it's not a bad idea to also brief their editor. Sometimes the writers write one thing and the editor rewords it into something else. Or at least that's what people say. So it's not a bad idea to just cover all bases there. If you know the press is showing up, or you just happen to catch out of the corner of your eye that the press has showed up, let everybody know. Ensure everybody knows the press is there and who the press is. This way we can kiss the appropriate ass. I mean, not make ourselves look stupid. If the press are there, give them an escort. I don't mean a hot chick. I mean escort them around. They tend to be on short deadlines, so anything you can do to make their job easy is usually appreciated. And usually bringing them up to cool people in your group that have lots of wisdom and usually are well-spoken will be seen as making their job easier.
This also helps them avoid the scary guy in the corner that tells everybody that they're close to dying and need counseling sessions. Keep them having good interactions. Keep them away from the crazies if possible.
Yes. And like I said, there's a lot of pagans that are out on the fringes that they only get their news through secondary sources, and if you screw up in the news media, they're going to hear about that rather than hearing it from you.
Mm-hmm.
And you screw up in the news media, they'll take it personally. Pagans have a habit of, somebody else made me look bad, I shall hate them. Just look at the whole Christian Day thing from earlier in the year if you don't believe me.
And I mean, this is something we've discussed through a couple of the episodes, that if you put yourself out there, understand that you will be scrutinized. It's not so much whine and cry that, oh, they're looking at me and they just misunderstood what I said and everybody's so mean, they twisted my words. Except that people will do it. Does it suck? Yes. But there's only so much you can do. So, do as much as you can. Present that good face. Make sure that you're aware of what you're saying and how you're acting, because you're the leader of this group now. You're not just a random person off the street. You're representing the group. And you have to remember that whenever dealing especially with members of the press. Even outside your event.
Now, one thing I'm really passionate about when it comes to groups and group dynamics is that a group collapsing is a leadership issue. In fact, it's a leadership failure. A lot of, I would say, inexperienced pagan leaders will often moan and groan that their members aren't doing anything. They're not active. They're not contributing. Wah, wah, wah. But that's just poor leadership. You haven't incentivized this. You haven't, and some people that don't know how to incentivize try to use money or physical objects or gifts to incentivize or raffles, and it's just no. You just gotta know how to stroke people's egos in the right way. You gotta make people feel good. You gotta make sure that they feel appreciated. This isn't just an act of manipulation, it's an act of genuine compassion.
And it goes back to what you had said earlier on making sure that you give people the right credit. People are generally skeptical, whether it's you assign them to do something and then all of a sudden it's, well, can you do this favor for me too? Can you do this favor for me? And then they go and take all the credit for all the hard work that you did. Yeah, especially if somebody's a leader of an organization, a leader of a group, a leader of a get-together. If you have, let's just say, 3 volunteers, you're starting a Pagan Pride Day, you have 3 other volunteers. Whatever happens, these 3 volunteers have busted their ass in order to make this happen, and you go, yeah, didn't my event go great? I'm so awesome because this is my event, and I organized it all, and it was my idea, and this is really awesome. I'm glad that it went well. You're going to jade people against working with you. Everybody wants that pat on the back. Everybody wants to be acknowledged that they are worth something, that what they did put a contribution. So it may seem little to say thank you for even... Sam, you're buzzing.
Sam, move your phone away from the microphone.
Even if somebody just brings snacks. Thank you so much for it. Does it seem silly at the time? Yeah, it can, but you know what? Everybody that helps has made that event what it is. And that is a huge part of keeping everybody involved. Giving them jobs to do and making sure that they're appreciated for those jobs is a lot bigger of an influence than what people think when they're in the midst of trying to go, okay, how do we get the water there? How do we get the food there? How do we get the invitations out? How do we get the press out? Saying thank you seems like a small thing, but it makes a world of difference. And it makes them more likely to help in the future and more likely to go a little bit farther next time if they know that all of their work is appreciated and noted.
And not just that, I mean, like we did here even on this show, the people that put in the most work get introduced first. It is very clear who's the people here that are contributing and who's here just for the hell of it.
True, you kind of get a gold star.
Gold star. I mean, yeah, it's silly. Yeah, most people probably don't even notice it. But it's something. I mean, it's a little more than nothing. A little more than nothing is better than nothing. Yeah, it's still a little less than something. But it's a good, good direction. But, I mean, the main thing to keep in mind is people aren't doing things because you're telling them to do things. This isn't a school. You are not a school teacher. Even if you are acting in the role of an instructor, you are not a school teacher. People aren't going to be intimidated. Oh my god, I'm afraid of getting a bad grade in Pagan study. Taking a school teacher approach to adults is a bad idea. They just won't do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, believing money as a motivator is also not exactly the best mentality. It just leads to a lot of fiscal irresponsibility, and you can look at a lot of pagan groups and find that. Improper motivation. Ugh, again, this is probably a huge problem with a lot of pagan groups, especially the ones that are not so successful. It's just usually find, well, it's one or two people that are running it. So yeah, but if you do an analysis on the organization, you will find that there's about 3 or 4 passionate people that are really passionate about the cause that organization represents, but just downright frustrated with the idiot that's running it. So that's something else to consider, and there's a few more points I want to add here that are not in the show notes. You got to figure out, is this organization being created for a purpose or for an ego? You must make this decision at some point. Is this an organization for you and the grandeur of you, in which case you'll be doing everything? Or is this about a purpose and goal that if you get distracted or you want to take up something else, you could just get up and hand this over to the next person and walk away and just take an advisory role at best. You know, the best thing to do is create your organization and organize it in such a way that if you got hit by a bus tomorrow, it'll survive just fine. You know, not out of martyrdom or out of the memory of somebody. It's just, you know, structurally designed to survive. Another thing is, you know, when you see an established organization, you know, like Covenant of the Goddess or Officers of Avalon, for example, they tend to have periodic elections for their leaders. If you're an organization that's well established and you're not getting elected leaders, and it's the same people running the place for a very long time, people are going to start to notice and start asking questions. This happened with Circle Sanctuary. In fact, this was a very famous problem with Circle Sanctuary. Isaac Bonowitz is the one who wrote an open letter to Circle Sanctuary about this issue, among other issues. And there's still bad blood between Isaac Bonowitz and Circle Sanctuary till this day over it. I'm a big fan of organizations that are centered around ideas. I recently have posted something to my Google+. You know, great people talk about ideas, lesser people talk about things, and small people talk about other people. And I think the same thing applies to organizations. Great organizations are about ideas and ideals even. Whereas petty organizations are about people. And people don't want to be part of petty organizations. They don't want to be associated with that. A lot of people feel they are judged based on the company they keep. If they keep bad company, yeah, they don't want to be judged for that.
Yeah.
But I think another thing too is, and again, this is not in the show notes, but a lot of events going on recently that have me thinking about this topic. One thing to keep in mind is, sooner or later, you got to put your foot down. There needs to be a border between what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And when you put your foot down, you'll lose the person that you are deeming unacceptable, and you will probably lose about 2 or 3 other people as well. You will just have to learn how to deal with this. This is going to happen. You're going to have people in your group doing unacceptable things. Whether it is something that is very common, like promoting drug usage, for example, which is a no-no if you're on a college campus, or if you got a person who just brings their kid and then never watches their kid, and the kid feels like pulling a fire alarm. Anything that could basically damage the reputation of not just you, you know, with your name on the space request for wherever you're at, but your organization and the entirety of the pagan community. That shit can't be tolerated. You know, you need to send a firm message, hey, this is bullshit, and you need to get out of here. You know, kind of like Bob. I like Bob. Bob's a cool guy. But when you just show up to antagonize the Bible thumpers, That's a bunch of bullshit because now you're taking time out of all of our enjoyment of getting to meet other pagans.
I think a lot of people have trouble with that because it's, if they're not quite confident, and sometimes even if they are confident, it's that, oh, please don't leave the group though. Can't you just tone it down a little and we'll try? I just want to keep as many people as possible.
Yeah, and then you develop a reputation as a pushover and you lose respect.
Right. And it doesn't mean you have to be a belligerent ass, either.
Yeah, you don't have to be like me. Be nice about it.
Hey, shouldn't be that hard on you. That's narcissism. You're not a narcissist. Let us do it.
I mean, there's times you are the leader. Your job is to lead, not follow. This isn't leadership by, hey, let's make everything a decision that everybody votes on. Sooner or later, you will have to make a decision. And that decision is going to be unpopular. And you're just going to have to make it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the deal when it comes to followers. Most people, if there's a good leader and a good plan there, people will readily follow. Not all of them, but a lot. A lot more go with it just because the group is. And people follow for a lot of strange reasons. People will follow and follow a good plan, and stick with a good group just because it is one, even if they don't necessarily agree with it. Okay, not to pull a Godwin, but look back to World War II. They had a lot of good followers. Well,
but one thing that I will say is that an organization that stands for an idea and is working to have effective and positive change towards achieving that idea is an organization that people try not to leave. I had fallings out with senior members of the Pagan Newswire Collective, but I still firmly believe in their ultimate goal of having a Pagan Newswire that will one day be nationally syndicated, internationally syndicated to regional newspapers just like the Associated Press. But doing it with journalistic integrity and upholding a series of ethical principles in the process. And I think that's a really fucking great idea. And even though I don't like a lot of the people in the PNC, I still think it's a worthwhile cause. And I think it's a worthwhile organization because it is effective at doing what it's doing. And that's also another thing to keep in mind with group dynamics is try to avoid the mass exodus. Mass exodus is easy in the pagan community. Any little thing and people just start off and spin off and start their own little group or clique or whatever, just go back into reclusion. But if you're standing for an idea and you are effective in achieving that idea, and especially if you're receptive to criticism and actually heed that criticism, you got something good going for you.
criticism's a dirty word. I'm not allowed to use that anymore.
Let's try to come up with a euphemism for it then. Enthusiastic input.
No, I offered criticism a while ago, or actually it wasn't even criticism, it was observation, and it led to me being the almost recipient of percussive maintenance, so yeah. But my criticism tends to be a little bit scalding, so my bad.
He was not very enthusiastic about your enthusiastic input.
Well, I suppose maybe I could have picked better words than, what the bleep is this? I mean, yeah, that probably was a poor word choice on my part.
Yeah, maybe. But word choice
Actually,
is very
no, that
effective.
was an accurate. That was an accurate word choice on my part. I mean, if I'd done something like that, I'd expect someone to say it.
Yeah. I mean, word choice is a critical part of leadership, though. Especially with online pagan groups, where your words are your only method of communication.
I don't know. I've set this standard. As of right now, I don't think I plan on joining any online pagan groups ever.
Oh, come on. Don't you want to do an internet ritual? I cast Circle of Tubes.
Oh, internet rituals.
No, I've decided this. I'm online pagan groups is something I'm.
There's a lot of vitriol there.
Yeah, I don't have words for this.
Vitriol is the word. But I will say, though, not to knock on internet stuff too terribly much, when you got a lot of pagans together, and you tell them to do their own individual rituals to achieve a specific goal, it does work. Just like the Texas Rain campaign put on by Firelight over at Inciting a Riot. Ever since that shit and that weekend, we've been getting rain. Not exactly drought busting, but it's a lot more than we were getting.
Yes, but that's much different than using the internet to do a ritual.
It's much different
So
than casting series of tubes.
Yeah, there is a big difference there. There's organizing people to do the ritual and then using the internet as a part, as in a tool of your ritual.
Actually, though, here's one for me. Let's say, hypothetically, I'm looking to join a group. Okay? Now, where should I draw the line for being critical?
Depends on how desperate you are. I hate to say it, but that really is the answer. If you're in an area where there's basically no pagan community and no other pagan communities really within driving distance, yeah, you're going to be willing to tolerate a lot more BS than you would in, say, Houston, where there's like a quadrillion pagans and there's pagan groups on every city street corner, it seems.
Maybe. I'll be honest with you. We're in this area. I think I might be one of two pagans.
And the other one is Silver Ravenwolf.
I know.
One day you're going to find out you're our next door neighbor.
Oh no, sir. That's not
Oh,
true.
God.
That's not true. There was a very large pagan community at Shippensburg.
That's Shippensburg.
Yeah, well, he is kind of a large-ish type state, so that's kind of still in your area. Because some of them were friends with Ravenwolf, so I know it was still part of that community. So you're not that alone as you think. Aaron has a thought back there about Facebook that I've been trying to get him to bring up, so he should bring it up now.
I don't know if it fits well right now.
Make it fit. It'll work.
All right, whatever. So I was just saying, back when you guys were talking about representing the group, about more, just be careful what you say on Facebook, even when you're not a leader of the group, even when you're just a member, or even when you're not even a part of a group, because you're still representing any of who you are.
I think I added the wrong account.
I think you did.
Other account.
I mean, I have audio now, as in I'm on my other account.
Okay.
Well, now that takes the confusion out of it.
Now that I see your other message.
Now we could let Aaron finish his comment.
Sorry
Well, I
about
kind of
that.
did. I finished.
Now that I've missed most of the recording.
That's it. Diane Griffin finished.
Oh, no,
Oh, no.
I've learned one thing about being affiliated with a group in Facebook. It does paint a target on your back. And you might end up having a case where you've had exactly maybe 15 conversations with somebody, and it's really dependent on how you define conversation that defines this number, but it's a very small number, and you write them off and they decide they're going to hate you with a passion for quite a while.
And if you want to know what one of these conversations sound like, you can actually, in Pagan's Tonight episode, PCP episode 211, I think it was, Pagan's Tonight. No, Tonight Pagans. Near the end of the episode, Scurv actually recaps one of those conversations in depth. Yay, I listened to my own show again.
I get depressed every time I hear myself on the show.
It's your show, too.
I've already growled. Don't make me bite someone.
Wow, chicka bow wow. On that awkward note, let's go to final thoughts.
A vast virus database has been updated.
That individual has used up their final thoughts quota.
Wait a second. Who was that from?
That was from Amber.
Was it?
Oh.
Final thoughts. My final thought is you can't pick up chicks in a Scion.
Final thoughts.
My final thought is if you're part of a group and if you have any say in anything, always watch what you say no matter where you are. If you can be known to be part of the group, know what you're saying.
My final thought is that even though I really didn't get to listen to the recording, if you're going to try and build a community, make sure you have enough members within that community that are motivated to actually do something.
Yeah, that's a good point.
My final thought is don't base your organization's cohesion on an entity or object that feeds off the life of the members. That's a bad plan.
Yeah, that's generally not a good business model.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a vampirism. Not a good business model. You heard it here on CCD.
I really haven't been on, but I can throw in a quick final thought.
Go ahead.
If you're going to start up a group in dealing with a certain idea or religion, so on and so forth, you will reflect. If you do something really stupid and get yourself on the news, you will reflect to rest of the world your base group. Like how, I guess 10 years ago there was a lot of the weird pagan groups, child molestation, so on and so forth. That even though you're just a very small part of a whole, people will look at you and peg you as you're that group, and everybody in that group is like that group. So, there's my final thought.
We had a comment from within the chat room that said, be part of the community. And I think sometimes that's just as much as if somebody's going through the effort to start one, try to help them out a little bit. Don't expect them to do all the work for you.
Do we have any more final thoughts?
Since a vast took my final thought, I don't think so.
I guess my final thought is that I should be on more.
Yeah, Aaron, come back. Thank you.
We miss you!
Missed y'all too.
Back for the first time in 100 episodes, it's Quirtos!
Yay!
Okay, you've made your Richard Dean Anderson, appearance. You can go away for another 10 seasons.
What season are we on?
23.
Yeah, it's been a while. But it hasn't seemed like it's been like that long time-wise.
I know. It's amazing how much stuff happens in here.
I'm in college now.
Holy crap.
Yay!
Yay for Quirtos.
Though if you think about it, though we're recording season 23, we're still only putting out season 20.
Hey, now, we're totally on season 22 now. Yeah, post-production, it takes a while.
Especially when the people doing the post-production are distracted by YouTube videos.
Thank you, Nick. That is very much appreciated for the efficiency of this organization.
I had you know, YouTube videos didn't distract me from my post-production.
Or school. School's distracting.
Yeah, school is distracting. Good grades are a high priority.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Good grades are a high priority.
Yeah. About that.
Wow, and I think it feels like yesterday we were going to visit you up in New York, and Ashley thought she was going to get arrested for jailbait. Right,
That was
who's the Ashley
15
lady
at the
anyway?
time.
She left. I think she's playing with Dan.
Bow chicka bow wow. She needs to play. Anyway. I think that's everybody. So, that's it for this episode. See you all next week when we talk. Well, we're interviewing someone. Amber, who are we interviewing?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's my answer too.
I think. Are we doing the dress people?
How about Taylor Owen?
Oh, it's Project Conversion
No.
with Andrew Bowen.
Oh, yeah, we're doing Andrew Bowen from Project Conversion.
Speaking of Star Foster, Andrew Bowen from BeliefNet.com. The arch nemesis of the Pathos. So yeah, go to BeliefNet. They have awesome blogs about Wicca now.
Yeah.
Much better than any of the crap we get on Pathos. And I'm not saying that as part of my heavily biased opinion against them.
Actually, I've been getting BeliefNet stuff since I was in college.
Yeah, they got to be sucky, and now they're starting to get good again. Ever since
Yeah.
Pathos poached all their writers, they seem to be getting good writers now.
And I'll tell you what, Andrew Bowen's writing, I've been very, very impressed with a lot of his insight, his approaching of the situation. Like, there's a lot that is spectacular with BeliefNet right now.
Yes. Yeah, so we're going to have BeliefNet person on next week because they are full of win. And we're going to talk about the full of win that they are, as opposed to the full of fail that Pathos claims he is.
Yay!
Or she, depending on the writer at Pathos.
Yeah, that female Pathos manager of the Pagan portal.
Who we shall not name.
Bad form.
Except she's been named several times in this.
In the last 1 minutes. That's Sarah Foster of Pathos.com.
No, it's she who shall not be named.
No, she wants to
no.
be famous. We'll garner oblige.
No, I already have a she who shall not be named. We can't use that.
Yeah, that's she who really shouldn't be named. We'll leave that for after hours. But that's it for tonight's episode. We'll see you all next week with Andrew Bowen of BeliefNet. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Fishy, fishy, fishy.
Audio recordings have ended.